Once the Spirit Pearl is born, call him Ne Zha.
Ne Zha. If you're an animation fan, there's a good chance that you've at least heard of this name before. That's because, as of this review, Ne Zha is China's most iconic cartoon character whose fame in the country can be considered on par with Mickey Mouse. And if that still doesn't ring a bell, then how about its sequel, Ne Zha 2? The second is what further elevated the Demon Boy's popularity and made cinema history as a box office phenomenon, breaking numerous of records to become not just the first animated movie to make over $2 billion, but also the highest grossing animated film in history, who's going to be hard to overthrow. I know that there are many of those who have decided to pass on watching the sequel, largely due to the fact that it's a Chinese movie. Which is too bad because one, that's kind of xenophobic, dude, come on. And two, they're seriously missing out because Ne Zha 2 is awesome. I reviewed it back in 2025 and I consider it one of the best animated movies of the year where, despite having an insanely long running time of nearly 2.5 hours, it managed to make it all work by turning Chinese mythology into an epic and action-packed adventure filled with amazing animation and heart from its strong cast of characters. Just by watching it alone, I can understand how it got the title of the biggest animated movie of all time. But what I'm about to talk about here will be the predecessor. The 2019 feature that may not be as big as 2, but still a major success in its own right that initially turned the Chinese legend into a cartoon star. So now that we'll be looking into the origins of a demon, will this show why Ne Zha was born to be an animation icon? Or does this feel more like the ineptitude of the gods? Let's find out. The story. On my first experience, I was rather surprised to see that the movie began in a very unexpected way, where it opens with complex gears working on a machine, a kid flying on a paper airplane, a pig on a rocket ride, and a rock band who exterminates their whole audience by shocking them. What do they all have to do with Ne Zha? Nothing, because they're all just 100 seconds worth of company logos that are more elaborate than they should be. Seriously, this might as well have started with a whole animated short. But when the movie actually begins, it presents a new version of the novel Investiture of the Gods that features the origins of the Chinese folk legend Ne Zha, a child who was born as the reincarnation of the demon orb. While he can be quite a menace in Changtong Pass, his parents, who are also the village chiefs, recommend him to use his powers for good by fighting demons and protect Changtong Pass, especially if he wants the villagers to like him. So with the mentorship of the Taoist immortal Tai Yi, Ne Zha will do what he can to become a hero of the people before the curse that was placed on the orb prior to his birth eliminates him on his 3rd birthday.
Piece of cake.
An important note about Chinese moviegoers is that as much as they have their own supply of movies that they go and watch, they can also be fans of Hollywood cinema. And when there's something that they really love, they can play a significant role in the success of big-name franchises such as the MCU, Fast and Furious, Transformers, and Avatar. There are even those rare occasions where the amount that a Hollywood movie made at the Chinese box office can outgross how much it did in North America, such as the case with Zootopia 2. The reason why I bring this up is because Hollywood can be a strong influence to Chinese media, and this also applies to filmmaking for making their own movies, and from watching Ne Zha, I feel like it took some inspiration from the mainstream animated features, especially with the comedy. In fact, a lot of the gags are familiar where they have that Looney Tunes style wackiness and slapstick, along with adding a bit of pop culture references. However, I want to reiterate that the influence feels more like they're from the modern mainstream animated movies and not from the classics. And that's where I find that the comedy is the film's weakest element. They feel more like pale imitations where the jokes don't land well, and it devalues the picture by trying to be like the American ones. Maybe this is a fresher experience for Chinese audiences, but for me, as someone who is very familiar with the formula of mainstream animated films, it just makes the storytelling feel less charming when it's just imitating others and doesn't execute its gags that well. It doesn't help either when the tone can be a bit inconsistent, where the first two acts are more like a family comedy, and then the third mostly drops that to prioritize the action and add more drama to the mix. That, and the one thing that could immediately turn off some people, is how it loves toilet humor, especially peeing. Yes, everybody pees, but this is one of the rare animated movies that's not afraid to show people peeing, mostly to go and set up a joke. That's my one warning about these movies. Both Ne Zha and Ne Zha 2 loves to pee.
Guys, you don't think that's too mean?
Huh? He's mean. He humiliates us, so we're just returning the favor. Yeah.
But believe it or not, as much as it may seem that I was going on a long rant with this, it doesn't fully take away that I consider the craftsmanship of the story to be pretty good. Shocking, I know, but I mainly wanted to get the movie's biggest problem out of the way first so that I could get into the rest with what it did right. Maybe the comedy is not strong enough to get you hooked, but the world building certainly does. The feature's use of Chinese mythology plays a big role in what makes it overall engaging. This isn't just about a boy looking for acceptance for others, but it's also to present this unique world filled with demons, magic, gods, dragons, and more that are all well established to have everything connected with one another and give the characters special abilities that makes the experience more unpredictable. Part of the fun of watching Ne Zha is to see what will come up next to expand the capabilities of what it can do and make this world feel richer with how they adapt these myths for the picture. I'd also like to add how the story does have some substance to give itself a bit of heart. The big message of the movie is how you're the only one who's in control of your destiny. Regardless of what others say about who you are in life, it's up to you to shape yourself to become who you wish to be. In the case of Ne Zha, the Supreme Lord dictates that the demon orb is a great evil that would be destroyed in 3 years' time, and the villagers all reject the boy as a destructive demon. And yet, Ne Zha's big goal is to subvert those expectations so that people could see that there is more to him than his mischievous rampage. He's going as far as to challenge monsters and the gods themselves to prove that he can do more than just be a demon.
I'm the master of my destiny. I'll be the one who decides, and I will not be a demon!
At the most, in terms of my criticisms, the execution of the story is what needed the most improvement. The mainstream style comedy and the inconsistent tone are what holds the movie back from feeling like this was crafted by the gods themselves. However, for what it did right, it did amazingly well with a captivating world where part of what makes this fun to watch is to discover the unique magic that it delivers at every turn as it makes the most out of using Chinese mythology, as well as some heart to provide a nice message about being who you want to be. While, like I said, this is where I'm the most critical with this film, I'm giving the story a 6 out of 10. Ne Zha definitely needs more training with his comedy skills, but the rest still got me invested with this magical journey through his Chinese world. The animation. The comedy may not have gotten a good grasp at emulating what some mainstream animated features can do, but the animation, on the other hand, is much better at that. On top of having incredible concepts for its world building, another factor of what makes it work is how it is all displayed with the visuals. While most of the film is set in Chengtong Pass, it knows how to make the world feel much bigger than the village itself. Especially with the more supernatural beings that have their own magical realm, like the gods in the heavens where they reside above the clouds, or the dragons in their deep-sea prison. But in terms of the locations that the characters go to, the standout place of the feature is when Ne Zha enters the painting in the scroll, where it's not only a lot more colorful and feel like a peaceful paradise, but it's also where Tai Yi is able to control the elements with his brush and manipulate them however he wants. Speaking of the elements, it's awe-inspiring to see how it executes the textures and effects. This is the kind of animated feature that pays attention to every detail to make the characters and their environment look believable. From the hair on Ne Zha's head, to how the stones are carved or when others are petrified to that, to the splashes from the water, to the fire that the boy shoots out, it makes sure that all the elements can look strong and believable to what they are. But what makes them even better is how creative it gets with them. Considering how magic is involved to manipulate the elements at their whim, it further sells on how this is the kind of film to expect the unexpected. Regardless of what it is, anything can be used during the action or to show off the character's abilities. But through the craftsmanship of the effects, they add a great layer to what makes their powers exciting to watch. But the times when they are best used in the film are during the action. I know I said before that the tone can have a weird shift when going into the third act, but I will admit that by the time it gets to that part, I'd say that it's the best because it's like the whole third act is the movie's epic climax. There are a few scenes where it can get action-packed before that moment, like when Ne Zha went after the Yaksha, but most of them are found during the finale when he fights against Ao Bing, and their mentors, Tai Yi and Shen Gongbao, enter the battle as well. This is where the characters make the most out of their unique abilities and weapons to show how they can be quite a powerful force in their own mystical way, all presented with dynamic anime-style cinematography that captures every intense shot, frequent use of slow motion to savor the moment, and a fast pace that keeps the scenes exciting and always leaves you guessing to what will they do next, along with the action itself becoming bigger and bigger as the film progresses. If there's one thing that I criticize about the animation, it's that there is something about it where it doesn't flow as smoothly as a mainstream animated film. Maybe it's because the tech that they had at the time wasn't as strong, or it's because it had a pretty small budget that is almost 4 times less than what the sequel had, but there's just something about the movements of the characters that feel a bit more like it was made for TV. Now, this wouldn't be much of a problem on its own, but when looking at the scale that the feature wanted to accomplish and were able to do great with, it's as if it's the one thing that isn't on the level that the other elements have reached and holds the feature back a bit from displaying its true capabilities.
You okay, Mom?
I'm fine. Good shot. On second thought.
But honestly, this is a relatively minor issue compared to everything else. It's like the one thing that keeps it from a perfect score. Not flawless, but still very impressive on its own, where it could still be amazing to watch the grand worlds, the epic action, and all the abilities that the cast can conjure. Not to mention that the character designs are not bad, where you got a mix of anime and comedically cartoony, yet they both feel like they belong in the same world. And with everything it did well, that's why I'm giving the animation a 9 out of 10. With all the magic coming from the immortals, demons, and more, it's the animators who are the most impressive with what they can create. The characters. To give you some context about this review, and if it wasn't already obvious from the clips that I've been showing, I saw the English dub of Ne Zha, and I find that this is one of those where it's probably better if you watch the sub version than the dub. Not to say that it's terrible, but the acting does sound like what people expect from 4Kids, where the performances are generally hammy. There is good acting from some recognizable names like Alex Lee as Ao Bing.
I have reached the 7th heaven of the Ice Jade. Also, I made a friend. I met him near the seashore.
Then there's Dana Snyder, who is almost unrecognizable as the Cloud Guard of the Portal.
Find a relative willing to sacrifice their life, have them put one rune on themselves and the other on the cursed individual.
And I'll even add that Jordan Cole also did well with his performance as Ne Zha.
Oh, come on. I don't care if they don't come, but you gotta be there.
Why is that?
Maybe because you're my only friend?
However, the one voice that makes this kind of weird to watch is from someone who you may find to sound quite familiar.
And if I weren't so busy being a super impressive, butt-kicking, day-saving monk, I've been told I could be a model.
Listen, I get that Mike Pollock is kind of a controversial figure, and I will say that his performance is fine in this. It's just that it's unmistakably Mike Pollock, where I cannot hear anything else but him. The movie may present a goofy immortal master, but when he speaks in English, he's a drunken Dr. Eggman whose deadliest weapon is his visible farts.
What was that you were saying?
But let's get back to the characters themselves and start off with the demon boy himself, Ne Zha. Like I said in my review of the sequel, Ne Zha can be best described as the Chinese equivalent to Stitch, a rebellious mischief who always gets into trouble and can leave a path of destruction along the way. However, despite being considered a menace to the village with his supernatural powers, he does wish to be accepted by the other villagers as one of them, which is why he can be sensitive to being labeled as a demon.
Go away, you demon brat!
But even though that is true, since he is the reincarnation of the demon orb, or demon pill as the English dub calls it, Ne Zha's real challenge is to fight against what the orb made him to be in order to become who he wants to be. While he is technically a demon with a bad attitude that can make him impulsive, egotistical, and impatient, he also wants to be loved and for people to accept him for who he is. And he has to prove to everyone, even to the gods, that his destiny is something greater than what was established for him.
You're not listening! Your fate's what you want it to be! No one else gets to decide what you are! My father taught that to me!
And by his side are his parents, Li Jing and Lady Yin, who I was surprised to see how they have a strong role here. While they can be frequently busy as the chiefs to fight off demons, they also have a lot of love for their son. And by knowing that he only has 3 years to live, they do whatever they can to make him happy. Even if it means to lie about who he really is so that he can be on a good path.
Believing he's the Spirit Pearl has given him joy. And if it means he can stay that way, then yes, I'm going to lie.
Then you have Ao Bing, who plays a big part in the heart of the movie. As the reincarnation of the Spirit Pearl, Ao Bing is meant to be Ne Zha's rival to take down, especially to help the dragons reclaim their place in the heavens and seek revenge against the gods. However, his destiny was challenged when he became Ne Zha's first and only friend, putting him in a similar position to figure out who he's meant to be. Should he continue with his given purpose to help the dragons, or aid the friend who saved his life?
Maybe I can't save him, but let me save his parents and his master to repay my debt.
Then you have the mentors like Shen Gongbao, who helps the dragons, and Ao Bing, since he also wants revenge against the gods for not trusting him to be among them, and Tai Yi, who is the main comic relief of the picture that often gets the receiving end of the gags. However, as great as his abilities can be, like when he has his brush, as the comedy is not great here, I don't find him to be a great character. Actually, this guy is just not right. The dude has a clear weakness for alcohol, he's always bumbling his way around, even when he's serious and keeping Ne Zha in control, and he literally keeps everything in his pants.
Oh, I can't reach it. Can you get it for me, little guy, please?
No problem. Whoa! You got like treasure pants!
Am I gonna get canceled for watching this?
Might be
As for the rest, they all fall in the same category as Tai Yi, where they're just comedic characters with their own shtick, like the yaksha, the guards, and some of the villagers. But again, since the comedy usually falls flat, so do the materials and the time they spend on screen.
So, what exactly is the signal?
You know, that's a good question.
Luckily, the only characters who are weak are those who serve the comedy, and they're generally the ones with minor roles. As for most of the main characters who have a purpose to the story, they provide the movie with a lot of heart to emotionally connect with and help emphasize the message about controlling your own destiny. Sure, some can have their flaws, but with the way that most of the cast is great, I'd give the characters an 8 out of 10. They may have been known for centuries as Chinese legends, but the movie has a great power to turn them into strong animated characters. This may not have been the movie that made him the absolute phenomenon in the country that he is known today, but just by watching this one, I could see how he immediately started off as one of China's biggest cartoon icons. Ne Zha is an exciting animated feature that is a great example of modern animation in China. While there are certain aspects that holds it back from being all around amazing, like the comedy isn't very good and the consistency of the tone could use some improvement, but even with those setbacks, it still did a fantastic job with its admirably creative use of Chinese mythology, a strong story about controlling your own destiny, gorgeous animation, incredible world building, and a good dose of epic action. Considering how big of a name Ne Zha has become in Chinese animation, especially after the sequel, I recommend animation fans to check this out to help expand their experience with watching cartoons, especially to see how other countries from around the world handle the medium. At the same time, I also think that this is a must-watch for those with an interest in Chinese mythology and Chinese pop culture. Either way, this movie has what it takes to have an audience outside of the fanbase it already has in China. And if you're happy with how Destiny led you to watch this review, then give this a like and come subscribe to my channel. You could join me in finding more great international animated features just waiting to be discovered. While Ne Zha was always recognized in Chinese myths for hundreds of years, the movie provided the Demon Boy with an additional title of being an animation legend. Hey guys, this is Animat, and what a blast it was to both experience and review Ne Zha. Now, as you have just seen, I've already explained not only why I think it's a very solid film, but also why is it that I feel like you should go and also check out Ne Zha. But if there is one additional factor as to why you should go and check it out, it's mainly because you need to go and have the context in order to go and experience its sequel, Ne Zha 2. Now, I've already done a review of that feature, and I even went as far as to go and call it one of the best animated features of 2025. Now, I did like the first Ne Zha, but I love Ne Zha 2. It's pretty ironic in a way, considering that it is the highest grossing animated feature in history, and yet I do find that outside of China, it's actually pretty underrated, that I don't feel like enough people outside of China actually got to go and experience Ne Zha, and I feel like they should, because at least for me, I feel like the fact that it did become the highest grossing animated feature of all time it's actually pretty justified, because this is actually one of those sequels that really improved upon the original, where it took the first film and not only did it go and actually improve some of the mistakes that it did, but on top of that, it took the things that worked and it made them so much better and so awe-inspiring at the same time. Where on top of the fact that the comedy is a lower priority in the sequel, and also the tone is definitely a lot more consistent, but on top of that, the animation got a big upgrade. The action scenes and the world building is so much more grand than it ever was in the first, and they really go deep in terms of Chinese mythology. Again, even more so than before. So if there is a reason why you should go and check out Ne Zha, for me personally, it would be because you need to go and check it out, because yes, it is definitely a great film, but on top of that, you need to go and prepare yourself for the actual experience of checking out Ne Zha 2. So all in all, go check out both Ne Zha films, because honestly, I personally find them to be fantastic. All right, now with all that said, now that I am officially done with talking about Ne Zha, it is time that we shall go and move on to a Patreon request. And this time around, this request is going to be from Tom Jackson. So before I go and tell you what the next review is going to be, I just want to go and tell you right now that if you would like to be like Tom and you want to go and support my work and get some amazing rewards, including but not limited to seeing my videos before anyone else, then all you have to do is go to patreon.com/animat. But at the same time, if you would like to suggest an animated film you would like me to review and that I would put onto the animation hat, then all you have to do is write me an email at animatsreviews@gmail.com. All right, so now with that said, what is it that Tom Jackson asked me to go and review? Well, funny enough, this is actually another international animated feature. Although where it was made is actually kind of a big mix. Like, you got a little bit of Canada, you got a little bit of Germany, and you got a little bit of Sweden all at the same time to go and craft this one animated feature based on a popular literature character that has dazzled audiences for several decades. But this is one of the significant times where we saw this character in animation. So until next time, we are about to go and meet the cartoon version, or at least one of the main cartoon versions of Astrid Lindgren's popular little girl.
Well, my time is almost up. You should leave.